This is for your flipped assignment for one-to-one functions and inverse functions. Basically, one-to-one functions means that it must pass a horizontal line test. Now, for it to be a function, to have an inverse function. For example, you've seen this before. You've seen the sine function here. And the sine function was something like this, right? Well, this function's not one-to-one, because if I do a vertical line test, it crosses this several times. Well, it crosses here 1, 2, 3, 4 times. It only can cross once to be a one-to-one function. So, for example, it also violates right in here. The same thing with the cosine function. That's why when we did trigonometry, we did the cosine function, it was something like this, right? Okay. It also does not pass the horizontal line test, so it's not one-to-one. That's why when we did our inverse functions with trigonometry, we had to restrict the domain in order to get an inverse function. So for something to be one-to-one, I could draw something like in your book. Let's see, I'll draw something like this. Exponential function. That function is one-to-one, because if you do a vertical line test, it only hits once. If it's one-to-one, it means it has an inverse, and you do not have to restrict the domain. So for sections 4.2, we aren't going to have to restrict the domains. Here's one I saw on your flipped work you're going to have to do, something like this. Is this one-to-one? No, because it crosses twice. At several locations it crosses twice. So it's not one-to-one, therefore it doesn't have an inverse. It would only have an inverse to say if we restricted the domain, say, between 0 and infinity, right? Then it might be one-to-one. But we don't have to worry about restrictions. In this case, there's one you have that is 22 that looks like this. That clearly is not one-to-one because it doesn't pass the horizontal line test. And that's all one-to-one functions mean. So just think of doing the horizontal line test just like you do with the vertical line test to determine if it's a function. Okay, in the next section you have to do, and I only did one of these, is you have a function here. They drew a graph, and here are the key points, and they want you to draw the inverse. Now, what's important to note is on inverse functions, the function f and its inverse, that means and its inverse, reflect over the line y equals x. So basically, I'm going to just do a little table here. xy. I'm going to go from left to right and write down these points. So -2, -2, that's this one. -1 to 0, 0 to 1, and 1 to 2. Now for inverse functions, all you're doing is switching the x and the y. So I'm going to switch my x and y, and here, so my y is now my x. Well, this is the same here. So I put 0, -1, 1, 0, 2, 1. See what I did? I just switched these. So I have a different x. My x is now my y is now my x. Now I'm going to graph this, so I'm going to graph these points here. So I'm still starting at the same point. Then I go to 0, -1, which is right there. 1, 0. Whoops. I don't know how to plot points. Okay, 0 to -1, which is here. 1 to 0, which is here. and 2 to 1, which is here. So it's something like this. And there's your inverse function. And that's what sorry, that's what you're going to do with your functions. So if we look at 33, let's look at 33. We know this is going to reflect over 33, y equals x, and it's really hard for me to draw in here, so I'm just going to try to draw it. It's going to reflect over this line, y equals x. Alright, and they gave you -1, -1, which was here. And they also gave you 2, 1, which is about here. And they did something, let me try to draw this, something like this. So, does that look right? Not really. Let me do it a little better. So it's something more like that. Alright, so you have to draw the inverse of that. And basically what I do, some of y'all can do this better. I'm going to draw my original f. So this is my f, which was -1, -1. And the other was 2, 1, my 2 key points, these 2 points here. And I'm going to switch the x and the y. So basically the first part stays the same, I'm going to 1, 2. So I'm starting here, and then I'm going from here, I'm going to go to 1, 2. Yeah, so to do the inverse, it's going to be more like, let's see if I can draw this, something like that. Do you see how it reflects over the y equals x? So that's how you would do something like that. You just kind of draw the points and then reflect it over the line y equals x. Okay? The other ones we're going to start, the next video is, we're going to do is to verify that they're inverses, which we already kind of did that. So we'll do more of that in class. And we're going to start on 47 through 58. Okay. So that's all of this video.